I swore to you guys that I was not going to do a day-to-day recap of the Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez trial, but we have to talk about the hot mess testimony that former best friend of Megan Thee Stallion, Kelsey Nicole, made yesterday, and she just really made a fool of herself and maybe the prosecution. Welcome back to the Kempire Daily YouTube channel, your number one source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So the internet was reacting heavily to the Kelsey Nicole testimony yesterday. The DA had to end early yesterday because of how a mess this Kelsey Nicole situation. And look, throughout this video, there will be moments where I have to just make a joke of this testimony. However, I do want to remind myself and all of us that there are real life lives at hand here. Megan Thee Stallion was shot. Who did it? And will there be justice? Okay, all that being said, can we just take a side and just go through what you guys are saying on social media and what lawyers are saying in regards to this situation? We're not going to backtrack. If you missed any of what this story is even about, I'll be posting links and things like that, but you can just Google schmoogle it or just check out the other videos that we've done. This week alone, we've done 2 or 3 videos talking about the Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez trial. TMZ has put together a nice summary, so I just want to kind of go through their summary and talk about some of what you guys are saying and what some other reporters are saying that are covering this case. So they said Megan Thee Stallion's ex-best friend is the key witness who all of a sudden doesn't seem to remember much about the night in question, which mounted to a wild day in court. Kelsey Nicole Harris, who was the other woman in the car with Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion during the 2020 shooting, caused fireworks Wednesday when she was called to the stand by the prosecution, almost immediately asking for immunity in the case and receiving it for her testimony. It should be noted that this is considered use immunity, meaning that anything that she says on the stand won't be used against her later. That doesn't mean if something else comes up in this case through other testimony and other findings that she couldn't possibly charge, because Tory Lanez's defense legal team is presenting the idea that Kelsey could have been the shooter. So they said despite this, Kelsey proved to be an incredibly difficult witness during direct examination, attempting to invoke her Fifth Amendment rights constantly and often asking the judge if she had to answer certain questions, hesitantly doing so when she did actually talk. So all of a sudden last night, this is a sidebar, I'm just going through my Twitter and Jessie Woo posts this transcript of the interaction between the prosecution and Kelsey in court. So she posts this, prosecution, they're asking Kelsey, did Tory threaten you? Kelsey says, I don't remember. Prosecution, we have the recording of you saying he did. Kelsey, oh, okay, I did say that, but I lied. Prosecution, you lied? Question mark. Kelsey, can I please the fourth?
Not have time for this.
I'm reading exactly. Can I please the fourth? Look, we always say that we're not attorneys here on the channel. However, we've watched enough Law and Order, we watched enough Scandal, we watched enough television to know it's not please the fourth. The judge says, the fifth? Kelsey says, yeah, can I plead that?
Move, your dirty blood clot, you bad-minded witch of your wicked demonic serpent, you.
My people, my people, my people. So after they do give her the immunity, okay, we'll move on from there. She said what she definitively testified to Wednesday under oath was that she did not shoot Megan Thee Stallion, contradicting the defense theory that she could have pulled the trigger. Now, as for who she says did the shooting, unclear. Remember, the prosecution on day 1 says that Kelsey was going to testify that Tory was the shooter. So they say at one point, Kelsey did testify that Tory threatened to shoot her, Kelsey, but later on the stand, Kelsey seemed to backtrack, saying sworn statements she'd given investigators in the lead up to this trial weren't entirely truthful, despite being played back recordings of her saying just that back in September. This is September, y'all. We're only in December. Prosecutors clearly wanted to point the finger at Tory, but so far Kelsey has not done that, and it could have a disastrous impact on the prosecution's case. Look, we've watched enough television to see that trials can be unpredictable, witnesses can be unpredictable. Kelsey backtracking, lying is not a first in these types of cases. However, it's just like, wow. So the prosecution, I know last night were probably like, we have to pivot. We need to figure out another way. Because right now, the prosecution's case is not looking good. And Tory might get off. It's still too early to make that decision. But based on what we're seeing and based on what other legal commenters are saying is that, yeah, this is not looking good for the prosecution. And one other lawyer for workers who's been in the court case, and I know some of you have mixed feelings about him, but every legal mind is going to have a different opinion on these situations. And his viewpoint is that, first of all, he was dumbfounded about Kelsey's testimony and then pleading the fifth. And then he also brought up a good point that I just didn't even think about, was that why is Tory not being charged with attempted murder?
I can't even explain the tension. They asked her, at one point, did Tory ever say that I'll shoot you? And she said, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right, which suggests, they asked her, what's the context? When did he say I'm going to shoot you? She said, I invoked the fifth, which suggests that the context was Kelsey was doing something, perhaps Meg was also doing something that would incriminate her. That's the context. That's what I get from it. That's my opinion. That's my read of it. For those of you who have been telling me that I'm biased and that there's only one angle to this story and that a man pulled a gun and shot 5 times at another woman and that the prosecutors haven't charged him with attempted murder, but I'm biased. If you believe the story that a man pulled a gun and shot 5 times at another woman, he hasn't been charged with attempted murder, and now you have another woman in the car saying, I plead the fifth.
If he multiple times shot at Megan Thee Stallion, why isn't he not being charged for attempted murder? I think partially because the prosecution doesn't have enough evidence to even prove that. TMZ continues, it says, prosecutors clearly wanted Kelsey to point the finger at Tory, but so far Kelsey has not done that, and it could have a disastrous impact on the prosecution's case. Of course, another way to look at this, by process of elimination, if Kelsey is denying doing the shooting, and with the driver never being accused whatsoever, one could surmise there's only one person left who could fire the shots, Tory Lanez. Time will tell how this will impact the jury, but so far there's a lot of confusion kicked up in just the 3 days of the trial so far, and it's not even close to being over yet. So it doesn't end there. A lot of you have been reacting on social media, and shout out to our friends over at the Jasmine brand who have gathered some of your reactions, but I want to really highlight some of the reporters that are following and reporting on this case. Dennis Byron, who has covered the Tasha K situation and other legal case, he posted this tweet. He says, when prosecutors asked about the bruises on Kelsey's body and how did it happen, she responded that she didn't know. However, when they asked her about why she had taken pictures of the bruises, she again said she didn't know why. Who was she protecting? Dennis Byron asked. One other Twitter user, GotCityT, says this. Kelsey Nicole in court says, did Tory offer to pay for your lawyer? She responded, yes. She was then asked, did Tory pay for your lawyer? She responded, I don't know. I can't remember. You don't know who's paying for your lawyer?
Girl. This girl is delusional.
This is a mess. Abort mission, prosecution. Abort mission. She is not helping your case. She already, based on what we've reported so far, is unreliable. She has no credibility. She has admitted to lying. She is hurting this case. But I know they didn't know what she was going to say when she went on the stand. God only knows what has happened since their meeting with her and now. Well, stay tuned for this. James Quealy on Twitter posted this. Kelsey Harris' testimony at Tory Lanez trial began with her showing up with an attorney and asking for immunity. It was granted even after the DA swore they had no intent to prosecute her. They continue and say no explanation as to what the immunity is for, no comment from Lanez's defense attorney, and Harris and her attorney fled the hallway before they could be approached by reporters. So Megan Cuniff, who's also been following this story, and I see a lot of you have been highlighting and following her reports of the story, she reports this. She says, Judge Hereford ended the trial early as the DA, Kathy Ta, pressed Kelsey about the aftermath of the shooting. Tory's apologetic phone call, her meeting with him, it wasn't going anywhere. Kelsey will be back for continued direct exam at 10:30, which in LA Superior Court means 11-ish. But there's more. There's more. Megan also writes this. Megan Cuniff, the reporter, she writes this. She says, Kelsey's testimony is going to take some time to really explain in an article because of her denials were also mixed with admissions that corroborated key details Deputy DA Kathy Ta was trying to get in, such as Tory offering her $1 million. Also, she says, regarding what Kelsey said about the alleged $1 million bribe from Tory, it's a bit nuanced. Ta asked her, Kelsey, at some point in this case, did Tory try to bribe you? Kelsey said, then pause for 20 seconds or so. And in court, 20 seconds feels like forever. She says, not just me. Kelsey says that. Ta followed by asking Kelsey who else Lanez tried to bribe. That's when Kelsey said, I wouldn't say bribe. Kelsey said, Tory, it wasn't about not saying anything, no. But then she added, but it was mentioned. Pressed by Ta, the DA, for details about what Tory said, Kelsey testified he mentioned $1 million. I guess it was just about the case. Kelsey testified. Ta, he offered you $1 million to keep quiet about the shooting. Kelsey, that's not the exact wording. I don't know about you guys. Look, none of us are attorneys. Some of you are attorneys. Okay, some of you are attorneys. And shout out to all the attorneys that do comment in the comment section. Not only do you provide me with some clarity on what it transpires in these cases, but you also provide our watchers and our other commenters in the comment section. But one thing I do understand is that at the end of the day, if the prosecution is not able to prove their case, if they're not able to have solid witness and solid information, and I know, and I said this before in my first video on this case, they made it seem as if this was an open and shut case. However, they have yet to prove that it's open and shut. It doesn't matter what we believe, because we all believe, at least I believe, I'm going to speak for myself, I believe that Tory did what he's being accused of. But that's just my belief. I wasn't there. But someone shot Megan Thee Stallion. But there's a whole lot of lying happening in this whole situation. And Kelsey Nicole, girl, and all of you leave her alone. I get it. You can be team Tory, you can be team Megan, but leave her alone in her comment section. When I went to try and find a picture for my thumbnail for this, all I see is troll comments of Kelsey. Look, you can feel the way that you feel about Kelsey, but there's no need to bully or troll her in her comment section. Guys, as always, let's have this conversation, an adult, constructive conversation in the comment section. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.